How the ancient Chinese changed the world. Did you know that the foundations of our modern world were laid thousands of years ago in the valleys of ancient China? From paper and printing to gunpowder and the compass, the Chinese shaped the course of global civilization in ways few can fully imagine. Yet behind each discovery lies a quiet story of patience, curiosity, and vision that slowly reshaped the world. Let's float over to the Yellow River where it all began. Here, more than 5,000 years ago, the first Chinese civilizations rose from the fertile plains of the north. Life centered around the river, known as the cradle of Chinese civilization. It gave the people water for crops, clay for pottery, and paths for travel. Early communities learned to tame floods and channel water through irrigation. This mastery of water was not just survival. It was the seed of organization. Villages grew into towns, and towns evolved into kingdoms ruled by dynasties that would one day build an empire. The Xia dynasty is often spoken of as the beginning. Though shrouded in legend, it marks the dawn of recorded Chinese history. Its people crafted tools from bronze, farmed millet, and carved simple characters that hinted at the written language to come. After the Xia came the Shang dynasty, a civilization that refined bronze casting into an art. Their weapons, vessels, and ornaments were not only beautiful but symbols of divine power. The Shang also gave the world one of its oldest written languages, etched into oracle bones used for communicating with spirits. As centuries passed, the Zhou dynasty emerged and gave structure to Chinese thought. This was the era when kings ruled through the mandate of heaven, an idea that would guide Chinese politics for over 2,000 years. It said that heaven granted emperors the right to rule as long as they governed wisely. If corruption spread or disaster struck, heaven could withdraw its mandate, justifying rebellion. It was a moral compass wrapped in divine authority, ensuring rulers remained answerable not only to their people, but to the cosmos itself. Let's move closer to a time of great minds and restless kingdoms. The Warring States period saw endless conflict, but also the birth of ideas that would shape human philosophy. Thinkers like Confucius, Laozi, and Mozi emerged in this age of chaos. Confucius taught about harmony through order, respect, and virtue. Laozi spoke of balance through the Tao, the natural flow of all things. Mozi urged equality and universal love. These were not just abstract ideas. They became the roots of Chinese ethics, governance, and way of life. While the philosophers debated, rulers sought power. One man finally unified them all, Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor. In 221 BCE, he ended centuries of war and forged the Qin dynasty. His empire stretched across vast lands and diverse peoples. Under his rule, China took its first true shape. He standardized coins, weights, measures, and even the width of chariot axles to ensure uniform roads. Most remarkably, he united writing. The new script allowed communication across the empire, ensuring messages from the court in Xianyang could be read in distant provinces without confusion. But the first emperor's ambitions reached beyond governance. He ordered the construction of one of history's most astounding feats, the Great Wall. Built to defend against northern invaders, it linked older regional walls into a massive barrier across rugged mountains and deserts. It was not the wall we see today, but a beginning, a symbol of unity and strength. To the world beyond, it was proof that the Chinese were builders of permanence. Let's pause for a moment inside the imperial court. Imagine the first emperor's advisors unrolling scrolls of bamboo strips, each line of text recording laws, taxes, and decrees. They were the early guardians of a bureaucratic system that would outlast empires. Every order was preserved through writing, and every piece of written word mattered. Yet this brings us to one of ancient China's greatest contributions to humanity, the invention of paper. Before paper, the Chinese wrote on bamboo, silk, and wood. These materials were expensive and hard to handle. Around the 1st century during the Han Dynasty, a court official named Tsai Lun experimented with bark, hemp, and rags, pulping them into thin sheets. His invention changed everything. Paper was light, affordable, and easy to produce. It allowed the spread of ideas, literature, and art across the empire. Centuries later, when paper reached the Islamic world and Europe, it ignited revolutions in education and communication. But paper alone could not spread knowledge without another breakthrough, the art of printing. During the Tang dynasty, craftsmen developed woodblock printing, carving characters onto wooden plates, inking them, and pressing them onto paper. The result was astonishing. Books could now be reproduced rather than written by hand. For the first time in history, knowledge could move faster than armies. As the Han and Tang dynasties flourished, so did science, medicine, and technology. The Chinese mapped stars, tracked comets, and designed mechanical devices that amazed travelers. They created seismographs to detect earthquakes, centuries before such technology appeared elsewhere. In medicine, they recorded the balance of the body through yin and yang, blending philosophy and healing into one. Silk traveled west along the Silk Road, carrying with it paper, porcelain, and the whispers of Chinese innovation. Let's drift now to a discovery that would forever alter the fate of nations: gunpowder. It began not as a weapon but as a search for immortality. Alchemists mixed sulfur, saltpeter, and charcoal, hoping to create an elixir of life. Instead, they found fire in a jar. The mixture exploded and the secret of gunpowder was born. By the Song dynasty, it powered rockets, bombs, and the first firearms. From China, gunpowder spread across Asia, then to Europe, changing warfare and shaping the modern age. As centuries rolled on, another invention guided travelers across oceans: the magnetic compass. Long before European explorers sailed to unknown worlds, Chinese sailors had learned to navigate with a lodestone floating in water. It pointed north, quietly revealing direction even when stars hid behind clouds. This simple tool connected continents and expanded the horizons of humankind. From writing to warfare, from philosophy to science, ancient China left a legacy that still pulses through our lives today. Every page we read, every map we follow, every idea recorded in ink traces its spirit back to that ancient land. The golden age of Chinese ingenuity. Let's open our eyes to the Tang dynasty. It was a time when China glowed like a lantern of civilization. From the capital city of Chang'an, the largest city on earth at that time, the world looked toward China for art, science, and trade. Streets filled with merchants from Persia, India, and the Arab world. Music, perfumes, and silks filled the air. The Tang court became a meeting point of cultures, proof that China's curiosity was never confined by its borders. The Chinese loved order and detail. Their officials were trained not by birth but by examination. The imperial exam system was one of China's most enduring creations. It allowed scholars from humble families to rise through merit, not status. They memorized texts of Confucius and mastered essays that reflected loyalty and wisdom. Passing the exam meant power, but it also meant responsibility. It became a tradition that defined China for more than 1,000 years. Now let's float over to the Song dynasty, a period when invention became almost routine. The Song were not the largest empire, but they were thinkers, dreamers, and engineers. It was under their rule that printing reached new heights. Bai Shen, a craftsman in the 11th century, created movable type using small clay pieces that could be rearranged to form any text. This was centuries before Gutenberg's printing press in Europe. The Chinese had already learned how to multiply knowledge with speed. In Song cities like Kaifeng and Hangzhou, life was remarkably advanced. Shops lined the streets, offering tea, books, and porcelain. Night markets glowed under the light of oil lamps. The government used paper money for trade, an innovation that would not reach Europe for hundreds of years. Engineers built water clocks, spinning armillary spheres, and mechanical figures that moved with gears and wheels. Science was not a mystery but a craft. One of the Song's great minds was Shen Kuo, a polymath who wrote about magnetism, astronomy, geology, and even the concept of climate change. He recorded how the Earth's surface shifted over time, long before modern geology existed. Another, Song, built an astronomical clock tower that combined mechanical engineering with celestial precision. It was powered by water and gears, a masterpiece of early automation. Let's drift to another silent revolution: agriculture. The Chinese discovered new strains of rice that matured faster, allowing multiple harvests each year. This innovation fed millions and supported booming cities. Irrigation canals, terraces, and plows became symbols of progress. The Song people also mastered tea cultivation, turning it into both a drink and an art form. Tea houses became gathering spots where scholars debated poetry and philosophy, and travelers shared news from distant lands. Trade was the lifeblood of the empire. The Silk Road stretched westward, carrying silk, ceramics, and paper toward Persia and beyond. But China also looked to the sea. Its shipbuilders designed massive junks with watertight compartments, magnetic compasses, and balanced sails. These ships could cross oceans centuries before European galleons took to the waves. Chinese sailors reached as far as Africa's eastern coast, guided by starlight and the pull of the compass needle. Let's float toward the Yuan dynasty now, when Mongol conquerors under Kublai Khan ruled over China. It was a time of vast connection. Though foreign rule reshaped the court, it also opened channels between East and West. The Venetian traveler Marco Polo journeyed through this world and returned to Europe filled with tales of China's wonders, its paper currency, postal system, and magnificent cities. His stories inspired explorers for generations to come. The Mongols may have ruled, but they also absorbed Chinese systems of governance and technology. They expanded the roads and the courier networks, allowing information to move at a pace unseen before. The Yuan dynasty became a global bridge. Ideas, spices, and science flowed through it. The world began to realize that the center of innovation lay far to the east. Then came the Ming dynasty, the age of great rebuilding. The Great Wall was strengthened into the form we see today, with stone towers and brick fortifications stretching over mountains and deserts. The Forbidden City rose in Beijing, a palace so vast it held thousands of rooms. It stood as a symbol of balance and order, built according to the rules of feng shui, aligning human design with the natural world. Under the Ming, China also turned its gaze to the sea once more. Admiral Zheng He led fleets of giant treasure ships that dwarfed the vessels of his time. He commanded thousands of sailors across 7 voyages, visiting lands from Southeast Asia to the coast of Africa. His ships carried porcelain, silk, and gifts for distant rulers, displaying China's wealth and grace. Yet, unlike other empires, the Ming expeditions sought not conquest but connection. They gathered knowledge, exchanged goods, and returned home peacefully. Zheng He's journeys remain one of history's most fascinating tales. His fleets were floating cities, equipped with gardens, workshops, and medical rooms. They navigated with compasses and celestial maps, proving how deeply the Chinese understood the natural world. When they sailed back, they brought stories of exotic animals, precious spices, and rare plants. One of the giraffes gifted to the Chinese emperor was seen as a heavenly omen. Let's pause again and look at the pattern forming through time. The Chinese genius was never just an invention, it was in harmony. Every creation served a purpose within a system of balance. The compass guided ships, but it also reflected the belief that heaven and earth followed order. Paper spread knowledge, but it also carried the wisdom of ancestors. The Great Wall was defense, yet it was also a monument to unity and perseverance. Even in art, this balance shines through. Painters captured mountains wrapped in mist, showing humans as small figures amid vast nature. Poets like Li Bai and Du Fu wrote verses that still echo across the centuries, blending joy, solitude, and reflection. The brush, the ink, and the silence between lines all carried the rhythm of a people who saw beauty in patience. The Ming dynasty also advanced ceramics into perfection. The world still treasures the blue and white porcelain of that era, delicate yet strong. It became a symbol of elegance that traveled across continents. Chinese porcelain shaped European tastes and inspired new industries abroad. The same can be said for silk weaving, which reached heights of refinement that no other civilization matched for centuries. Let's float one last time through the Ming ports, where ships returned with foreign goods and left again with art, science, and tradition. China was the world's workshop long before modern times. Its inventions had already traveled far beyond its borders, carried by merchants, scholars, and explorers. By this time, the rest of the world had begun to awaken. Yet many of its sparks had been lit by Chinese hands.